quickly, but I think there are programs to just
we'll speak about the interest rates in a bit as we progress through the conversation. But Richard, there's something that Fano here spoke about in terms of sustainability. There seems to be a ripple effect across the economy where people are reacting to what's happening. So he gave an example of pricing. Could it be that people are pricing their products because they don't know where the rate is going to come out from next week? They don't know what the Minister of Finance is going to say next week, and they don't know what probably the Reserve Bank Governor is going to say in the coming week. Could it be that factor of that uncertainty that people have become accustomed to in the Zimbabwean economy that's contributing to all these factors that Fano has highlighted, in your opinion?
Thank you, Mona Lisa. Let me go back to, I think, the earlier point made by Eddie, where you were saying, I think the way we are trading Forex, or rather the way our foreign exchange market is structured, is not optimal. So ideally, if you look at, for example, I think statistics between January and October, the auction market, I think, is handling about 33% of the total import requirement in the economy. And the rest of the FX, what makes up to 100%, is foreign currency that individuals are sourcing for themselves, or rather payments that are being made out of their own FCA accounts.
So this is on the power markets?
So, which is where I was going. So essentially, what it means is the majority of the people are using their own ways to source their own foreign currency. Either they are pricing their goods in US dollars, they do their bankings, and then against the bankings, they then push their import requirements. So we are potentially sitting on a very fertile market, which if it was correctly structured, could be something that leads us to a situation where we have proper price discovery.
What is your definition of properly structured?
So essentially, if we look at the willing buyer, willing seller, for example, the notion of a willing buyer, willing seller market, in my opinion, is not correct. Rather, we should have a willing seller, willing buyer. It's the other way around. So how does a willing seller, willing buyer work? If you have $100 that you need to dispose for ZWL, we should allow for a situation where you approach your bank and then you set a reserve price. You say, I'm selling this $100. I'm putting a reserve price at a rate of 800, for example. I'm just throwing it. Then your bank should be on the back of the offer that you have made. Your bank should be able to go to the market and scout for a person who is willing to buy this $700. Probably at a rate of 805, 810, because banks will do leverage on the buy-sell spread. So if we get a buyer at 805, essentially we build the market. There's a buy rate, there's a sell rate. So whatever the average of the two is what feeds into the exchange. And this process is, in my opinion, should be driven from the bank's side of view. I mean, from the side of the banks, as opposed to the regulator being the central person who is allocated. And then where you can then refine is to say, we understand that there are strategic interests in the country, things like your electricity, things like your fuel, I mean, essential items that are important for any country to run normally. You can then have those coming in probably at the auction rate or some other sort of like a discounted exchange rate, which the central bank can then preside over. So to answer your question more directly, I think the self-fulfilling need, I think, that is happening is largely on account of the fact that we don't have an effective mechanism for price discovery. I think I'll draw you to a period in time, if my memory serves me, or it should be between May and September 2019. where the Reserve Bank allowed the banks to go into the market and buy FX at a proper willing seller, willing buyer exchange rate. And for that period, we had a bit of stability, and we had a semblance of, I think, what I would call a normal market. And I think if we had managed to sustain that, I don't believe that probably the rate would have moved in the manner that we have witnessed over the past 2.5 years. So I think we still have that opportunity. I think it's a premium of under 30%. We still have that opportunity if we set up the right framework, if we set up the right mechanisms for us to be able to trade foreign currency. And then on the intervention side as well, from the side of the Reserve Bank, I think on the back of the SDR facility, some of the excesses that we are having, if from a retention point of view and even from an export point of view, they will be well qualified for them to be able to intervene in the market if they want to influence the exchange rate in a particular direction. So that would be my remarks in this video.
It's unfortunate that the Deputy Governor has left, because I think he would also be instrumental in having this conversation, because Eddie, I'll put it to you, he, when he gave his presentation, he expressed that he is happy with the way the parallel market vis-a-vis the one auction system has been faring. He is of the opinion that it's stabilizing and is happy with the way that things are going forward. But from the conversations, interactions that we're having here, this panel is of the opinion that it could be done a different way. So in your interactions, Eddie, earlier on you spoke about how you've been interacting with different officials on how to address this foreign currency situation. In your interactions, is there room for adjustments to how we're trading foreign currency? And what have been the conversations around that? And what could be the possible way forward if we seem to be at a backlog, and how the market would want trading of foreign currency to be done, and how the authorities would rather have foreign currency trading to be done?
I'm sure all of you have got memories. I remember on one occasion going down to Mozambique. I drove down to Beira. I spent a few days in Beira. I was paying for everything with US dollars in cash, getting Metikash in return. When I returned to Zimbabwe,
in progress.
I had a 20-liter bucket full of Metikash. And on my way back to the border, I stopped at a village market where they were selling coconuts. And I asked the woman on the side of the road, how many coconuts can I buy with this bucket of Metikash? She took the bucket and emptied the Metikash on the ground and said, for the bucket, I will give you 3 coconuts. The Metikash was worthless. I was in Zambia on my way to Tanzania, where I was doing business in northern Tanzania. I called in Lusaka, went to a bank. I handed over $200 US cash, and I said, can I have some kwacha, please? And the teller looked at me and said, have you got something to carry it? I said, what do you mean? He said, sir, you need to see how much cash you're going to get. So I went outside and I bought a plastic bag. And I came back, one of these rubbish bags, and I put that on the counter, and he then started filling this bag. When he had finished, I walked through the door and he said to me, Mr. Cross, you can't walk onto the street with that. They'll rob you on Cairo Road. So I walked out and I paid for fuel and stuff like that, but I didn't pay I paid in bundles of kwacha. Today, I've just been down to Mozambique. I couldn't use my US dollars. The taxi driver didn't want them. They wanted Metikash. When I go to Zambia and I pay my hotel bill with my card, I ask the lady, what currency will be credited to your account? She said, kwacha. Now, what's wrong with us? Why is the Metikai stable? Why is Mozambique a low inflation, stable economy with a stable currency? And they're earning nothing on the export market. Our export earnings are $1 billion a month. $1 billion a month. We've doubled our export earnings in the past 3 years. Our imports are about, what's our import demand? About $140 million a week. What's that? $600 million a month? It's $400 million a month surplus foreign exchange. And the parallel market is 800, 900 to 1. Why? Last year, Somalia. And you know where that is? And you know what it's like? They introduced the system which my friend here was talking about a few minutes ago. And they now have a stable currency. Is Zimbabwe listening? The auction market, Madam Chair, at $11 million yesterday, or the day before, is completely insignificant. It's less than 10%, it's not 30%, it's less than 10% of our import demand. So it's the parallel market that's dictating our prices. Where is the Zimbabwe dollar? I've said that we should be enforcing the use of the Zimbabwe dollar. It should be the sole means of exchange in our economy. Why is the $4 million at the ranch such a big problem for Ramaphosa? It's because in South Africa, if you earn US dollars, you are required by law to convert it into rand within 7 days. And he had it in his couch for 4 months. He deserved to lose it. But that is a crucial issue. It's just a question of allowing the banks to trade foreign exchange properly. And the Reserve Bank should not be involved. Why? I was in Parliament on the 17th of February 2009 when Chinamasta stood up. And 15 minutes, he said, no exchange control, no price control, no controls on gold, bomb, 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 bomb. And in 15 minutes, we were the freest economy in the world. And in 10 days, there were no shortage of anything, any kind in the country. Our supermarkets were full, our filling stations were full at world market prices. And inflation went from, we were doubling prices every 3 hours. Every 3 hours we were doubling prices, and in 10 days we had no inflation. What the hell is wrong with us? And it's not that we don't know what to do. We do know what to do.
So why are we not?
The problem is the vultures. And vultures, Rakawana. Okay. And believe me, they, on every turn of the parallel market rate, these guys make millions. You look at these guys, it's a whole bunch of people in this country who don't have any visible means of support, and they're driving Maseratis.
Fano, do you think that our banking system has capacity to handle their own trading foreign currency?
Yes, definitely the banking sector has got capacity. I think the sector has actually done so, before, and systems are available to be able to manage the system. So I think capacity exists. What perhaps is required, maybe at this point, is a commitment to a real policy change that actually causes transformation in this area, so that the exchange market can actually be a bit more efficient. We've seen perhaps with the introduction of the willing buyer, willing seller market, some kind of partial liberalization, but I think that's not what the market is looking for. This is a market where there is a trust deficit as far as monetary issues are concerned.
Because of the history, isn't it?
It's the history, it's a recent history as well. You can't fault the economic agents on the market to think in that way. So what is needed is full liberalization, not the partial liberalization that has been achieved with the willing buyer, willing seller.
I'm curious to know what the response has been when you speak on these issues with the rightful authorities, because all of you seem very articulate and you know exactly what should be done. So when you articulate this to the people that have to make these decisions, what is the response? What responses are you getting?
Maybe I could try that.
Yes, please.
So I think the authorities, to be fair to them, they've listened to some of the contributions that have been made, and perhaps one would say started taking some bold actions towards addressing some of the distortions. A very good case in point is the conversation around having real interest rates on the market, which I think was quite a bold move on their part. Caused a lot of pain, on the market, and we're still feeling it. But I think just from a policy posture point of view, quite bold that. Then the willing buyer, willing seller was also a reaction to contributions from the market. What perhaps is the challenge is the speed with which some of these good things are implemented. And as you know, when you do things too late, it becomes too little, too late, and it's very difficult then at that point to actually balance the market. I think if they can actually react to contributions from industry and commerce with haste, we probably will have stability on the market. Yeah.
While we still have the microphone, we need to start winding down. Our hour is almost up. While we still have the microphone, Fanlo, there's something about the interest rates that you highlighted earlier. And I can imagine that financial institutions were planning their strategies for 2023 with the hope that these interest rates can be revised. But, the central bank has made it clear that as of now, maybe foreseeable future, that 200% remains. So what happens now? How then are you planning now as financial institutions?
Well, in the financial sector, price controls of this nature are the sort of thing that one would not have expected, to be seeing at this point. But I think we take guidance from the policy signals that we see coming out of the RBZ. Now, when they talk about inflation targeting at a rate of no more than 3% on a monthly basis, the signal that is coming to us is that they are projecting perhaps inflation to be going down. And if the high interest rates that have been established were a response to an extremely high inflation outturn at a particular point in time, then perhaps we should actually be seeing those rates easing a little bit going into 2023. To what extent that is going to be achieved becomes a conversation that's open to a lot of speculation. And I think from a planning point of view, what we then do is to look at scenarios and then develop our plans within that kind of framework, so to speak.
As we wrap up as well, Richard, I'll have you answer the same question around the planning around the monetary policies for financial institutions specifically. And then as you round off, you can then just give your general overview.
Thank you. I think I would like to agree with Fanlo on the issue of the interest rates, but at the same time, I think because it has now become somewhat unsustainable to borrow at levels of around 200%. But we've also seen an increase in demand on the USD borrowing side as well. And I think I need to paint the context to it to say if we look at, for example, the split or rather the composition of foreign currency deposits in our total broad money supply, I think it's upward of 60%. Which is also somewhat indicative of where the economy is going from a currency split point of view. It's largely strong on the dollar than probably it is on the ZWL. So the opportunities, I think, for the banks, they remain there, though there is somewhat of a depressed activity on the ZWL side from a loan demand point of view. But I think we are seeing a lot of interest in the US dollar borrowing. And if you may allow, probably if I can just do a brief rundown of I think what I think are the key issues.
Very briefly, please.
From an outlook point of view, as we go into 2023, I think number one, the issue around the sluggish growth. I think the revised GDP numbers are a cause for worry, and I think in respect of that, if we look at the anticipated performance of gold and other minerals, I think it's going, if we are not going to, if the dollar, if the US dollar is to continue stronger, then we are going to have a depressed price from a gold and platinum and other metals point of view. And I think us being a very mining dependent economy from a forex point of view, I think it's one of the key issues to look out for. Then number two, I think 2023 obviously being an election year, we are bound to see a lot of spending. So that is also going to
spending by?
Of course, by the government. So obviously, from a money supply point of view, that it's a huge source of pressure on the FX side, and also naturally inflation also responds. Then there's another issue as well. I think which I needed to highlight. I think it was in the budget. We anticipate that our imports are going to grow. I think from 7.2 billion to about 8.2 in 2023, and that is a huge source of worry for me. If you look at it from an FX demand point of view, that is going to also feed into the exchange rate. And I think what is also worsening it, because the dollar is strengthening against the euro, against the pound, against the rand. So it makes our imports much more cheaper, because we are coming from a predominantly US dollar economy. So if we are importing in euro, in pound, and in rand, the propensity to import then I think also increases. And I think it's a source of pressure. And even if you also look at it from an increased capacity utilization, because we are saying the economy, our utilization is about 63%, we are anticipating it to grow. So obviously a part of that growth has to be funded from an import point of view, because naturally there is increased demand for raw materials and other items that go into production, and that feeds into the increased demand for FX. Then related to that as well, if you look at development partner support, the monies that we are getting from NGOs and the like, because of the war in Russia and Ukraine, the resources I think are being prioritized into those sort of areas. And obviously that is going to affect from an FX revenue mix point of view, it's going to affect our overall basket from what we are having in the pot. So I just thought I would mention those, I think, key highlights, which I think will be necessary for businesses to look out for as we get into 2023.
Thank you, Richard. I'll move on to you, Hopo, very briefly. Your final remarks regarding 2023 trade of Zimbabwe within the commercial space.
Thank you so much. As I've highlighted before, Zimbabwe has great potential to export to the region, and I'm happy that the report highlights most of the challenges which needs to be addressed. And as we move forward to 2023, I think as a region, the public and private sector, there are some policy areas that we need to work on, issues to do with the mutual recognition of standards and equivalence. If you manufacture your product as a private sector in Zimbabwe, is it recognized in Egypt, for example? We need to address that. Issues to do with low cost of charges if you want to do a cross-border payment. As we speak, our policies as a region, they don't speak to each other, and probably as COMESA we are working on a policy that is going to facilitate cross-border payments, and we are happy that we are getting a lot of support from the Reserve Bank in terms of adoption of the policies. There are issues to do policies around the rules of origin. Under COMESA and other trading blocks, we need to align so that exporters won't have challenges when moving their products to the region. And issues also to do with governance issues, recognition and following of IPs. It's also an area that we need to look out for going forward in 2023.
Thank you, Alpo. Thank you so much, Alpo. Eddie, briefly, your final remarks as we round off this conversation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think that the work that you've just recently done, I appreciate this survey. I think it was very, very important. I'd just like to say regarding 2023, I see the principal challenges are to maintain growth and in the economy, and I don't think that's going to be easy. It's going to require all of us putting our shoulders to the wheel. Establishing a conventional trading system for foreign exchange. If we don't do that, we're going to be a high inflation, low production economy going forward. Lifting exchange control and establishing the Zimbabwe dollar as the sole means of exchange inside the economy. And I don't think that's optional. I think that's critical. Restoring our infrastructure. One of the reasons why Cecil John Rhodes built a railway line from Kimberley in South Africa to northern Zambia, to the Congolese border, was to be able to export copper from the Congo into the international markets. We seem to have forgotten that. Our railways are not working at all. It costs us $3,500 US to move a 20-foot container from Harare to Durban. It takes up to 3 weeks. It costs the Chinese $1,200 US to move a container from Shanghai to Chicago. And if we don't solve that problem with infrastructure, believe me, we're not going to be able to. We talk about our export potential. Have you seen the queues at the border posts? At Lubumbashi recently, last week, the queue there was 73 kilometers long. Have you ever seen a queue of trucks 73 kilometers? At Chirundu, often it stretches right back to the escarpment, 37 kilometers. Guys sleeping in their trucks on the side of the road. You can't build an economy on that basis. You've got to get it right. And finally, we need a re-engagement with the international community, and I think the President's talked about that. And if we don't achieve that, I think the prospects of our growth going forward will be hampered by the inability for us to finance the growth. And I think that's where we are today. We've got a growing economy. The ability to finance it is the main problem, and we can't solve that without access to global markets. But we mustn't lose sight of the fact that our economic fundamentals are sound. We've got a disciplined budget. We've got a surplus, fiscal surplus. We've got a balance of payment surplus. We've got a growing economy. We're creating 10,000 jobs a month. I have been involved in this economy for 60 years. I cannot remember a time in my life when we've been creating jobs at that speed. And we need to recognize that, but we need to maintain it. It's a very different situation when you have a shrinking economy, which we had under Mugabe, if you're a shrinking economy, do you know that our power consumption used to be 2,400 megawatts? And at the height of the Mugabe regime, it was 1,400. It was 1,400. Do you know how we don't recognize how dramatically our situation has changed? We've done all the right things. Now we need to prepare ourselves for a much brighter future, but a future where it's dependent upon us being able to meet these fundamentals. And if we don't meet them, then we won't achieve our potential. And that'll be a tragedy, not just for us, but for the whole of Southern Africa.
Thank you, Eddie. Thank you so much to our panelists. I'm happy we stuck within the 1 hour that we were allocated, but I have an opportunity to take one or two interventions, contributions from the floor. If you have any question, you can raise your hand, the microphone will come to you, or any contribution, and to whom it's directed to. Okay, we have two, we have one over there, and there's another one from the president here. Do we have anything else? Just two? And three over here. So we only have three. So I'll take them all at once. So just say to whom it's directed to, take them all at once, then we ask our panelists to answer.
Oh, thank you. Oh, fantastic. All right, so I've got three directed to the first one, to Fano Kapanji. There's a point that Nigel raised in the morning about the period that we anticipate the current dual current system to be in existence, which is the duration of NTS 1 up to around 2025. As the banking sector right now, in foreign currency, are you lending beyond 2025 with its critical? Then my second is to Richard. You are also a banker. I bought some gold coins. I am aware that even at the time of buying, there was a vesting period, which is about to expire now. And I'm wondering if you are ready to pay us. We bought in Zimbabwean dollars. We need to be given USD. Is the banking sector ready? For me and everyone else that bought the gold coins. Then my last, to my brother Eddie, on the 29th of June 2022 in Victoria Falls, you said clearly, and I quote, the Zimbabwean dollar is dead. You better prepare for the funeral, unquote. What's your sentiment today regarding that? And then my second to you, Eddie, again, you recommend that we go back to SOR currency, which is the Zim dollar. And I think in 2019, the Minister of Finance tried to do that. And it lasted 9 months. Everyone is aware of what happened. So do you believe right now that the fundamentals are now right for us to go back to the Zimbabwean dollar? Then lastly to Eddie again, you indicated that,
7 questions.
one, you indicated that everything with our monetary policy is wrong. And I know that you were part of the monetary policy committee. You presided over even this auction system. If you can just comment on that, whether indoors you were also indicating the same. Thank you.
Thank you, President. I think we have a hand up here. Just take all of them so that we...
Thank you. Mine is a very simple question. I come from the SME sector, manufacturing, and I haven't heard anything about the SME support. We read quite a bit about the IMF support, but we haven't seen anything or heard anything today. I'm wondering whether you really consider the SME sector as an engine for growth. Then I've got a plea about the corruption that we've been talking about. Corruption really is like